Gene seed is the term commonly used by the Adeptus Astartes to describe the vital genetic material that enables the transformation of a human into a superhuman space marine. This genetic substance comprises a collection of germ cells and viral machines, all meticulously engineered to form the various specialized organs that are surgically implanted into a human adolescent male, facilitating his metamorphosis into a transhuman warrior of the Astartes. The origins of the gene seed date back to the 30th millennium, when it was crafted by the Emperor of Mankind and the scientists of the Biotechnical Division in his gene laboratories located deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, now known as the Himalayas. The gene seed was based on the genomes of the 20 primarchs, who served as the genetic templates for these superhuman warriors. The term gene seed is most often associated with the material stored in the progenoid glands of a space marine, which must be carefully harvested by an apothecary. This material is essential for cultivating the next generation of space marines. The gene seed is composed of 19 distinct types, each corresponding to one of the 19 unique organs implanted into a human male during his transformation into an Astartes. Many of these organs are neural in nature, and the implantation process often requires that the subject remain conscious, as painkillers cannot be administered to dull the mind during the procedure. Some organs are grown externally in vitro from gene seed samples, while others must be directly injected into the aspirant's body, where they develop and integrate with his physiology. Each Space Marine chapter relies on the gene seed organs to trigger and regulate the profound metabolic changes that reshape an ordinary mortal into an Astartes, granting them their extraordinary abilities and ensuring the legacy of the Emperor's transhuman warriors continues across the millennia. The gene seed is encoded with the intricate genetic information necessary to reshape ordinary human cells into the specialized organs unique to the Space Marines, particularly when these organs are not directly implanted after being cultured outside the body. This gene seed comprises genetically engineered viral machines designed to reconstruct the male human form according to a biological blueprint originally devised by the Emperor of Mankind, who employed his unparalleled scientific expertise in the creation of the Astartes. Since the inception of the Space Marines, there has never been a singular, standardized method for activating the transformative powers of the gene seed. As a result, each chapter of the Adeptus Astartes has developed its own methods, rituals, and traditions for creating new Space Marines. These diverse approaches have their roots in the experimental nature of the first founding during the 30th millennium, when the 20 original Space Marine legions were being forged. During this period, a variety of techniques were tested to control and manage the transformation from human to transhuman. Different chapters evolved unique rituals that reflect these early practices. The Space Wolves conduct the blooding ritual, the Imperial Fists utilize the Hand of Faith, the White Scars perform the rites of the Risen Moon, and the Blood Angels engage in insanguination. Over time, the chapters lost the ability to engineer new gene seed or to generate fresh Astartes organs from scratch. Moreover, many chapters now struggle to maintain a stable supply of gene seed, as genetic mutations and the loss of key organs have made it impossible for some to cultivate all 19 implants essential for Space Marine creation. However, certain chapters, considered purer in their preservation of stable gene seed, such as the Grey Knights, Ultramarines and Dark Angels, have managed to retain enough viable genetic material to fully develop all 19 functioning implants. This is one reason why the Ultramarines and Dark Angels have produced more successor chapters than any other first founding chapters. Nevertheless, all chapters possess the gene seed required to culture the black carapace, which enables Space Marines to interface with their power armor, and the progenoid glands, which are vital for creating future generations of Astartes. The process of implanting gene seed organs has evolved into a near-religious ceremony, where further surgical procedures may be required to correct imbalances that arise due to suboptimal surgery or poor metabolic adjustments in the recipient's body. These operations have become ritualized over the centuries, as each chapter maintains its own traditions in this sacred act. The secondary heart, also called a maintainer, is the first and simplest of the 19 gene seed organs implanted into a space marine neophyte. This organ resembles a smaller version of the human heart and is placed within the chest cavity, linking to the circulatory and pulmonary systems near the original heart. Its primary function is to enhance the Astartes' endurance, delivering greater oxygen and nutrients to the muscles by increasing blood flow far beyond the capacity of even the fittest humans. In combat, the secondary heart can be life-saving. If the Marine's primary heart fails or sustains damage, this auxiliary heart can maintain circulation until medical attention from the chapter's apothecaries is possible. The second gene seed organ, the os modula, also called the iron heart, is surgically implanted near the pituitary gland at the base of the neophyte's brain, integrating into the endocrine system. It secretes a specially engineered growth hormone which, when combined with a diet infused with microscopic ceramic minerals, induces rapid skeletal and muscular growth. Over the course of 2 Terran years, the neophyte's body grows significantly stronger and larger, eventually reaching a height of 7 to until 7.5 feet with corresponding muscle mass. The os modula's effects also fuse the rib cage into a solid mass of interlocked bone plates, protecting the Marine's vital organs from harm, though this structural change makes surgical procedures on the chest more difficult for apothecaries. The biscopia, the third implant, often called the Forge of Strength, is a small spherical organ placed in the chest cavity. Like the os modula, its effects are hormonal in nature. It stimulates extensive muscle growth, significantly increasing the physical strength of the neophyte. The biscopia is usually implanted alongside the secondary heart and the os modula during the neophyte's early adolescence, typically between the ages of 10 and 12 Terran years. The hemastamen, the bloodmaker, is the fourth gene seed organ, implanted into a major blood vessel like the aorta, vena cava, or femoral artery. It alters the biochemical composition of the Astartes' blood, improving the efficiency of oxygen and nutrient transport. The presence of the hemastamen causes a space marine's blood to appear a brighter red than that of normal humans, due to its enhanced oxygen-carrying capacity. This organ also helps regulate the activities of the os modula and biscopia. Called the healer, Lariman's organ is the fifth gene seed implant, roughly the size of a golf ball and shaped like a human liver. It produces Lariman cells, synthetic biological cells that function like platelets, clotting wounds with far greater speed and effectiveness. When an Astartes is wounded, these cells are released into the bloodstream, and upon reaching the site of injury, they quickly form scar tissue, preventing blood loss and infection. The catalepsian node, the sixth implant, the unsleeping one, is inserted into the back of the brain near the cerebrum. It allows the Astartes to remain awake and alert by shutting down parts of the brain sequentially to rest, mimicking a process theorized to occur in certain cetaceans like bottlenose dolphins. Though this implant allows Marines to operate for extended periods without sleep, excessive use can lead to hallucinations or psychosis. The longest recorded period of continuous combat duty without rest is 328 hours, achieved by a squad of Crimson Fists during the defense of Rin's world. The preomnor neutralizer, the seventh gene seed organ, functions as a second stomach or pre-stomach positioned above the normal digestive organ. It allows Space Marines to consume and neutralize toxins or indigestible materials by biochemically analyzing and filtering them out. The preomnor isolates hazardous substances, either neutralizing them or allowing them to be safely expelled later. In some cases, toxins are stored in the Becher's gland for future tactical use. The omophagia, or the remembrancer, is the eighth implant inserted into the spinal cord and connected to both the central nervous system and the digestive system. This organ grants the Astartes the ability to absorb the memories and experiences of creatures by consuming their flesh. Through neural connections, the omophagia transmits information to the brain, providing valuable survival or tactical data. This implant is also responsible for the blood-drinking and flesh-eating rituals of certain Space Marine chapters, such as the Blood Drinkers and Flesh Tearers. Over time, mutations in this gene seed have fostered cravings for blood or flesh in some chapters. The imbiber multilung, or imbiber, is the 9th gene seed organ and serves as a third lung. Implanted into the chest cavity, it allows Space Marines to breathe in low-oxygen environments where normal humans would suffocate. The multilung sphincter mechanism enables all 3 lungs to function simultaneously, while in toxic atmospheres, the primary lungs are sealed off, leaving the multilung to filter and absorb oxygen while eliminating harmful substances. The multilung's efficiency in toxic dispersal makes it invaluable for survival in hazardous environments. The oculobe, also called the Eye of Vengeance, the 10th of the gene seed organs, is implanted at the base of the brain, intricately woven into the optic nerve and connected to the retina. This implant enables a Space Marine's eyes to respond to optic therapy, administered in the apothecarium, which adjusts the growth of the eyes and their light-receptive retinal cells. As a result, Space Marines possess visual acuity far superior to that of ordinary humans, allowing them to see in low-light conditions and near-total darkness almost as effectively as in bright daylight. Lyman's ear, the sentinel, is the 11th gene seed organ, is an advanced auditory implant that entirely replaces one of a Space Marine's original ears. Externally indistinguishable from a human ear, this organ allows a Marine to consciously filter and enhance specific sounds. It also makes the Astartes immune to dizziness or motion sickness, vastly improving their auditory perception in combat. Named after one of the Emperor's geneticists who worked in Terra's gene laboratories, the Sentinel grants a Space Marine the ability to hear with far greater precision than a normal human ever could. The hibernator Susan membrane, the 12th organ, is implanted in the cranium and merges with the Space Marine's cerebrum over time. This membrane allows a Space Marine to enter a state of suspended animation, either voluntarily or as an automatic response to severe trauma. A Marine in this state can survive for centuries, even with grievous injuries. Revival from hibernation requires either chemical therapy or hypnotic autosuggestion. The longest known period of suspended animation was endured by Silas Eyre of the Dark Angels, who survived for 567 years in this state. The melanochrome skin shield, the 13th gene seed organ, is attached to the lymphatic system and regulates melanin production in a Space Marine's skin. This implant protects the Astartes from harmful electromagnetic radiation and, in response to high levels of sunlight, causes their skin to darken as needed. Variations in the melanochrome organ among different chapters have resulted in distinct skin colors, such as the alabaster complexion of the Blood Angels or the dark skin and red eyes of the Salamanders, shaped by the organ's response to environmental radiation. The olytic kidney, or the purifier, the 14th organ, acts as an emergency detoxification system, processing poisons, toxins, and gases too potent for even the Astartes' robust immune system. Situated in the abdominal cavity, this organ allows Space Marines to survive encounters with otherwise lethal substances. However, during detoxification, the Astartes falls into unconsciousness, making this a dangerous occurrence in battle. Additionally, the olytic kidney regulates the Marine's circulatory system, ensuring the proper function of all other implanted and natural organs. The neuroglottis, often called the devourer, the 15th gene seed organ, is implanted in the upper nasal passages. Once active, it enables a Space Marine to biochemically assess substances by taste, chew, or smell, detecting toxins and nutritional value with unparalleled precision. This organ also enhances the Astartes' olfactory senses, enabling them to track enemies or prey by scent, akin to a highly trained tracking animal. The mucranoid, or the weaver, the 16th organ, is connected to the central nervous system and secretes a waxy, mucus-like substance through the pores in response to certain environmental stimuli. Triggered by external chemical treatment, this secretion forms a protective layer, cocooning the Astartes' skin to protect against the elements including extreme cold or even the vacuum of space. Space Marines undergo this process before entering suspended animation, safeguarding their bodies from the harshest conditions. The Becher's gland, so-called poison bite, the 17th gene seed organ, consists of two glands implanted inside the mouth, such as in the lower lip, salivary glands, or palate. These glands transform a space marine's saliva into a potent corrosive acid that can be spat at foes, blinding or maiming them. Additionally, the acid aids in digesting tough or indigestible substances. However, in some chapters, such as those descending from Rogel Dawn, this organ has atrophied, and its corrosive properties are no longer functional. The progenoid glands, called actually the gene seed, the 18th and most crucial organ, are responsible for producing the gene seed needed to create new space marines. Each Astartes has two progenoid glands, one in the neck and another in the chest. These glands respond to the other implants in the marine's body by producing germ cells through a process resembling mitosis. These germ cells, when harvested by the chapter's apothecaries, can be cultured into the 19 gene seed organs required to transform a human into a space marine. Without the progenoid glands, the Astartes would be unable to reproduce their kind, making these organs vital for a chapter's survival. The black carapace, or the interface, the final and most significant of the gene seed organs, is implanted directly beneath the skin of the torso. This neuroreactive, fibrous material enables a space marine to interface with his power armor, allowing him to control it as though it were an extension of his own body. After implantation, the black carapace bonds with the marine's central nervous system, integrating invasive fiber bundles into his body. While power armor can be worn without this implant, it is far less efficient in the hands of those who do not possess the black carapace, such as the Sisters of Battle or Inquisitors. For the Astartes, this implant is what truly transforms them into living weapons encased in cybernetic warplate, fully synchronizing with the machine spirit of their armor to maximize their combat effectiveness. Though the Primaris Space Marines now stand elevated above their firstborn brethren, they were nonetheless created using the same gene seed derived from their Primarchs, as with all other members of the Adeptus Astartes. Despite their enhanced status, concerns have arisen within the Imperium about how these transhuman warriors might respond to the genetic quirks and flaws present in some of the more unique chapters, especially given the long history of catastrophic outcomes from previous attempts to alter the Emperor's original design. In his quest to improve upon the original Space Marine template, Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call collected genomic samples from all 20 Primarchs, including those lost or declared traitors. However, the resurrected Primarch Guilliman sternly instructed his enthusiastic servant that the Primaris Marines should only be created from the gene lines of the 9 loyalist Space Marine legions. In addition to general advancements in their gene seed, Primaris Space Marines were equipped with 3 new gene seed organs that their firstborn counterparts do not possess, and their genetic stability far surpasses that of their predecessors. Primaris gene seed exhibits a mere 0.001% chance of deviancy from the original baseline with each successive generation, rendering them nearly immune to the genetic instability that has long plagued chapters such as the Blood Angels and Space Wolves. Since the first founding, every Space Marine has been created with 19 specialized organs derived from the gene seed. However, Primaris Marines are augmented with 3 additional organs, a development made possible by the Sang Primus Portum, a device containing potent genetic material originally harvested from the Primarchs. This technological breakthrough, entrusted to Call by Guilliman shortly after the second founding in the early 31st millennium, gave rise to a new breed of Adeptus Astartes that would eventually be deployed in the Ultima founding of circa year 999 of the 41st millennium. The millennia-long labour undertaken by Call, during which Guilliman was grievously wounded and placed in stasis on Macragge, meant that the secrets of these new Primaris organs were not revealed until late in the 41st millennium. The delay was due to Call's interpretation of his orders and the immense complexity of the task. Nonetheless, the release of these advancements marked the dawning of a new era for the Adeptus Astartes. The Primaris Space Marines are endowed with all 19 gene seed implants that their firstborn Astartes brethren possess, along with 3 additional organs unique to their kind, bringing the total to 22. These innovative enhancements, crafted by the genius of Archimagos Belisarius Cawl, further elevate their transhuman abilities, empowering them to mete out the Emperor's justice in a galaxy enveloped by darkness and despair. The new implants include sinew coils, the steel within. The sinews of a Primaris Marine are reinforced with dura-metallic coil cables that contract with tremendous force, greatly increasing their strength while providing an additional layer of physical protection. A Primaris Marine can crush a man's skull with his bare hands, shatter flak armor, or even sever metal cables with his teeth if necessary. Magnificat the Amplifier. This small thumbnail-sized lobe is implanted into the brain's cortex and secretes hormones that accelerate bodily growth while enhancing the function of other transhuman implants, particularly the Biscopia and Os Modula. Consequently, Primaris Astartes are a full Terran foot taller and physically more powerful than their firstborn counterparts. However, the Magnificat is only half of the original Immortis gland, also known as the Godmaker, which the Emperor designed for his Primarchs. Cawl could only reconstruct the dextrophic lobe, the right half, as the plans for the Centaurus, the left half, had been entirely erased from Imperial records pertaining to the Primarch project. Whether this erasure was the work of the Emperor himself or some other entity remains a mystery. Belisarian Furnace, the Revitalizer. This dormant organ is linked to both of a Space Marine's hearts. In moments of extreme stress or when the warrior suffers severe trauma, the furnace releases potent bursts of self-synthesized chemicals, a hypercharged cocktail that mimics the effects of combat stims while promoting rapid regeneration of tissue, bone, and muscle. Once the crisis passes, the gland reverts to dormancy and requires time to rebuild its metabolic reserves for future activation. The Canis helix, often referred to as the spirit of the wolf, represents the distinctive mutation within the gene seed of the Space Wolves chapter, inherited alongside the standard gene seed organ implants derived from their Primarch, Leman Russ. This genetic anomaly acts as a catalyst, triggering the transformation of an ordinary mortal into a superhuman Astartes. The inherent instability of the Canis helix is responsible for the wolf-like traits that emerge in the Space Wolves. Chief among these are their heightened sense of smell and their elongated canine fangs, a signature physical characteristic. Additionally, the Canis helix causes Space Wolves to grow unusually thick body hair throughout their lives, and in some cases this genetic instability leads to the tragic degeneration into the feral mutants known as the Wolfen. Much like ordinary human germ cells, exposure to intense ionizing radiation can effectively render a Space Marine sterile by destroying the germ cells within his progenoids, preventing them from producing viable gene seed. Over the many millennia since the formation of the original Space Marine legions, gene seed has been prone to mutation during replication. This can result in either unforeseen physiological changes in a chapter's Space Marines or a complete breakdown of the gene seed's functionality. Prolonged exposure to the warping psychic energies of chaos also poses a significant risk, often causing mutations within a chapter's gene seed. For this reason, the Adeptus Mechanicus's tech priests are tasked with monitoring the genetic purity of every chapter's gene seed. As part of this vigilant oversight, each chapter is required to regularly tithe 5% of its gene seed to the Mechanicus on Mars. This serves the dual purpose of ensuring genetic integrity and providing material for the creation of new Space Marine chapters, should the High Lords of Terror decree a new founding. As the first legion of the original Space Marine legions, the Dark Angels possess gene seed that is among the purest and least degraded of all. There are no documented aberrations within the gene seed of the Dark Angels, making the hesitance of the High Lords of Terror to use it in the creation of new chapters all the more baffling. The Dark Angels and their successor chapters, collectively referred to as the Unforgiven, maintain an unusually close relationship, often coordinating their efforts in a manner that suggests a unique bond. However, this closeness is matched by a pervasive suspicion toward outsiders, giving the Dark Angels and the Unforgiven a reputation for aloofness and rigid secrecy. Indeed, it is not uncommon for the Dark Angels or one of the Unforgiven to abruptly withdraw from a war zone without warning when confronted by an inquisitor or missionary, further fueling rumors of nepotism and the reformation of a secretive legion. These factors, coupled with their tendency to work in isolation, have caused the wider Imperium to view the Unforgiven with a measure of distrust. Despite their gene seed's immaculate purity, the Dark Angels have been repeatedly overlooked in many of the foundings that have produced new chapters to bolster the Imperium's forces. Yet on rare occasions, the Adeptus Terra has allowed the Dark Angels to participate in a founding, though records of such events often vanish mysteriously thereafter. In this way, an unknown number of Unforgiven chapters have been created, ostensibly to fight the Imperium's wars, yet secretly assisting in the Dark Angels' enigmatic hunt. The Emperor's Children Legion's gene seed and its conditioning resulted in warriors with perfectly sculpted physiques, a noble demeanor, and highly refined thought processes. Their psychology was driven by a relentless pursuit of personal achievement and a desire to prove individual superiority. The only physical anomaly recorded among the Emperor's children was occasional albinism and a shift in iris color to violet in some recruits. The Iron Warrior's gene seed produced Space Marines prone to suspicion and paranoia, yet exceptionally intelligent and gifted in problem-solving. These traits, while making them formidable in warfare, also fostered an untrusting, calculating nature within the 4th Legion. The White Scar's gene seed initially appeared stable, showing no signs of mutation. However, with the introduction of genetic material from the wild tribesmen of Mundus Planus, the Legion inherited their recruits' feral aggression and thirst for battle, infusing the White Scars with an unpredictable savagery. The Space Wolf's gene seed is most notable for causing enlarged canine teeth, extreme hair growth, and, in rare cases, degenerative mutation into the monstrous Wolfen due to genetic incompatibility with the Canis helix. Over time, the Imperial Fists have lost the function of two Astartes organs, the Becher's gland, which allows the production of poisonous spittle, and the Susan membrane, which enables suspended animation. Moreover, the battle brothers of this chapter exhibit an obsessive need to scrimshaw the bones of their fallen comrades when not in combat. This chapter, along with its successors, also displays troubling psychological traits of extreme self-castigation for any perceived failures, real or imagined, often making use of the pain glove, a device that stimulates every pain receptor in the body. A peculiar genetic flaw known as Dawn's darkness affects some of the scions of Dawn's lineage. This condition induces a trance-like state, a waking nightmare where the afflicted relive the profound despair of their Primarch's darkest moment, the discovery of the Emperor mortally wounded during the Siege of Terra. The gene seed of the Night Lords is surprisingly pure, exhibiting minimal evidence of mutation. The most prominent physical traits among them are their jet-black eyes and pallid skin, a feature that became more pronounced following the introduction of the genetic material from the bleak inhabitants of Nostramu. However, the true legacy of their unhinged Primarch appears to manifest psychologically, as many within the Night Lords exhibit pronounced paranoia and self-destructive tendencies. These traits drive their proficiency in psychological warfare, employing terror and fear tactics not just for effectiveness, but for the twisted pleasure they derive from it. Among the Blood Angels, a number are afflicted by the maddening Black Rage, a curse that manifests as a death-seeking frenzy induced by visions of their Primarch's demise. Others fall prey to the Red Thirst, an insatiable craving for blood that some fear may signal the first steps towards chaos corruption. The Iron Hands harbour a profound hatred for the frailty of flesh, which veils a deep psychological fear of their own physical vulnerability. As an Iron Hand Space Marine matures, this hatred intensifies, leading to the increasingly radical mechanization of their bodies. The origin of this fear remains unclear, though many within the Adeptus Mechanicus speculate that it stems from a genetic flaw that surfaced after the death of their Primarch at Istvan V. Yet, through their continual augmentation with mechanical parts, the flaw appears to be mitigated or at least rendered inconsequential. It is widely suspected that Angren's gene seed was tainted from the beginning, dooming the World Eaters to damnation the moment they were created. Some argue that the World Eaters could have been saved had the warning signs been identified earlier. Regardless of the truth, the Space Marines of the World Eaters are driven by an insatiable need to shed blood. This primal urge plunges them into a berserk frenzy, leaving them consumed by bloodlust. So overwhelming is their desire to kill that they will even turn on one another when no other enemies are present. In stark contrast, the Ultramarines boast gene seed that is by far the purest, with no recorded aberrations. Every one of the specialized organs required to forge a Space Marine functions flawlessly within the Ultramarines, ensuring that they remain as perfect in form and function as they were during the time of their Primarch, Guilliman. As the largest of the Space Marine legions, the Ultramarines contributed heavily to the genetic repository used to monitor and preserve gene seed purity. As a result, their genetic material became the foundation for many second founding chapters and continues to be the most favored gene stock in subsequent foundings. The Death Guard legionaries reflected the gaunt, hollow-eyed demeanor of their Primarch, an appearance that belied the sheer resilience with which they were crafted. The original Terran-born stock of the Legion exhibited stoicism and a gene-forged fortitude, a legacy of their descent from the Ironside warriors of old Albia. With the introduction of recruits from the feral, pallid inhabitants of Barbarous, the Death Guard's gene seed seemed to magnify an innate resistance to toxins and diseases, elevating it to extraordinary levels. The gene seed of the Thousand Sons, derived from the Primarch Magnus the Red, was always genetically unstable and prone to mutation. This instability led to the widespread development of psychic powers among the Thousand Sons, but also resulted in their eventual degeneration into twisted, chaotic abominations known as the Flesh Change. Some believe that the Blood Ravens chapter, renowned for their psychic prowess, may be the loyalist descendants of the Thousand Sons. This would not only explain their unusual affinity for psychic abilities, but also their occasional susceptibility to the temptations of chaos. The gene seed of the Sons of Horus, prior to the infamous events on Davin, was remarkably pure. However, following their descent into chaos, mutations began to manifest among their ranks, likely rooted in their now tainted gene seed. The widespread practice of demonic possession within their ranks only accelerated this corruption. Yet within the chaos-worshipping ranks of the Sons of Horus, these mutations were seen as a mark of the favor bestowed by the dark gods, worn with pride rather than shame. The word-bearers were initially believed to possess pure gene seed. However, in the wake of the Horus heresy, the inherent flaws within their genetic material were laid bare. The warriors of the word-bearers exhibited an unrelenting, fanatical belief, bordering on insanity even during the Great Crusade. This unwavering devotion and stubbornness have since been exacerbated by their constant exposure to the warp, warping their gene seed and magnifying their original negative traits to monstrous extremes. The Salamanders, by contrast, boast a genetic resilience far exceeding that of their Astartes peers. Their strength of constitution grants them remarkable resistance to extreme temperatures, radiation, and rapid cellular repair. Their bodies also display an ember-like glow within their eyes and skin, which darkens to obsidian-like shades upon prolonged exposure to harmful radiation, creating a striking granite-like appearance. For the Raven Guard, the gene seed has suffered a slow degradation over the millennia. The chapter has lost the use of both the Betcher's gland and mucranoid, critical organs from their gene seed array. Additionally, as Raven Guard Space Marines age, their skin gradually pales until it becomes as white as their Primarchs, while their hair and eyes turn jet black, forming a stark contrast. The Alpha Legion, despite its notorious reputation, originally possessed gene seed of surprising purity. The initial Alpha Legionaries were tall and physically imposing, attributes well suited to their Primarch Alpharius's emphasis on misdirection and deception. These Astartes often sought to model themselves after Alpharius himself, embodying the Legion's philosophy of unity and strategic unpredictability. Their genetic purity was matched by their tendencies towards secrecy and initiative. The excoriators suffer from a hereditary condition known as Dawn's darkness. To the untrained eye, this affliction manifests as a simple palsy, a slack jaw, trembling limbs, or vacant eyes. Yet those who have survived this ordeal describe it as a living nightmare, where they relive the profound grief of their primarch Rogel Dawn as he discovered the mortally wounded emperor during the Siege of Terror. The angels in Carmine, like their progenitors the Blood Angels, bear the same tragic flaw that afflicts many of Sanguinius's descendants. Their curse manifests in a fiery zeal that drives them to ever greater feats of heroism. Where other chapters may pause to rebuild after a grueling campaign, the angels on Carmine hurl themselves headlong into the next battle, rarely allowing themselves time to recuperate. Some whisper that this relentless drive to fight is not simply a means to avoid the curse, but a deliberate effort to purge those succumbing to the Black Rage. The Blood Drinkers, another successor chapter of the Blood Angels, suffer from a worsened version of the Red Thirst, where the entire chapter is plagued by an overwhelming craving for blood. This desire has led to the establishment of blood-drinking rituals that help control the bloodlust, providing the chapter with both its name and a measure of control over this ever-present urge. The Flesh Tearers, however, are far further along the descent into madness. Their gene seed carries a heightened version of the Black Rage, threatening to drive the chapter to extinction within a matter of decades. They also suffer from the Red Thirst, and when combined with the Black Rage, it often results in savage cannibalistic frenzies on the battlefield. Despite suffering catastrophic losses throughout their history, the Raptors have displayed a remarkable ability to recover, suggesting that their gene seed is both healthy and stable. Like the Raven Guard, the Raptors gradually develop pale skin as they age, with some veterans attaining an almost translucent complexion. Their hair, in turn, darkens to jet black, creating a striking contrast. While the Raptors lack a functional mucranoid implant, they retain a fully functional Becher's gland, unlike their progenitors, suggesting that this organ may have been recovered or that their founding occurred before the Raven Guard lost it. The Flesh Eaters, like all Blood Angels' successors, carry the genetic flaw of their progenitor chapter. However, some successor chapters, particularly those founded in later centuries, feel its burden more acutely. During periods when the Blood Angels' chapter council believed the flaw had been eradicated, it had, in truth, mutated into more troubling forms. Consequently, those chapters born from the Blood Angels' gene seed at such times found their battle brothers not merely prone to momentary lapses of control, but teetering on the brink of madness. Similarly, the Death Spectres, much like the Raven Guard, suffer from a minor mutation in the melanochromic organ, the gene seed organ responsible for controlling melanin production. This mutation leads to a condition of albinism among their warriors. The Black Dragons, on the other hand, were censured by the Inquisition for the mutation within their gene seed, particularly their osmodula, which caused some of the chapter's Astartes to develop prominent bone protrusions resembling blades on their forearms and heads. These warriors also grew long, venomous fangs. Due to such obvious physical mutations, the Black Dragons found it nearly impossible to maintain prolonged cooperation with other, less tolerant branches of the Imperial Adepta, pushing the limits of the Inquisition's tolerance. The Blood Gorgons, valuing their autonomy above all else, were declared renegades and excommunicate Traitoris a mere 6 decades after their founding. Despite their exile within the Eye of Terror, they have steadfastly refused to pledge themselves to any single Chaos god, preferring instead to serve Chaos undivided. The Firehawks were another chapter that faced scrutiny, with many Astartes peers regarding them as tainted, overly prideful, and lacking in the bonds of brotherhood. Some even speculated that their gene seed or collective psyche was flawed, though none could deny their efficacy on the battlefield. Eventually, they were declared excommunicate Traitoris within a century of their founding. Their dark reputation only worsened after the Inquisition's Grey Knights nearly wiped out the Flame Falcons, following a bizarre incident where their bodies erupted into flames without harming their flesh after a great victory. The Lamenters, a tragically ill-fated chapter, are suspected to have had their gene seed tampered with by the Adeptus Mechanicus in a failed attempt to eliminate the Blood Angel's genetic flaws. This tinkering may have contributed to their seemingly endless string of misfortunes. The Minotaurs, driven by a fanatical xenophobia far exceeding that of a typical space marine, are prone to berserk fury and ferocious assaults. The Minotaurs take a certain pleasure in testing themselves against worthy opponents. Some speculate that their particular zeal for hunting renegade chapters at the behest of the High Lords of Terror stems from their belief that fellow Astartes represent the most worthy foes. The Sons of Antaeus were created through extensive gene seed modification, designed to produce space marines of unmatched durability, strength, and size. Whether through skeletal enhancements or other esoteric genetic procedures, these Astartes are often compared to the traitorous Death Guard for their sheer resilience. The true origin of their gene seed remains a mystery, though it bears the scars of long-term degradation. The Carcharodons, meanwhile, show interesting genetic traits, including several markers reminiscent of the Raven Guard bloodline. These markers, though rare, suggest a potential connection. The Carcharodons' warriors all possess deathly pale skin, and the most ancient among them bear eyes of solid black, devoid of iris or sclera. Despite these common traits, the chapter's diversity in other physical attributes indicates that they recruit from a wide range of sources, with their pale skin and black eyes likely stemming from their altered gene seed. Lastly, the Blood Ravens possess unique abilities tied to their gene seed. After implantation, they lose the ability to experience REM sleep and, as a result, can no longer dream. Instead, they gain perfect recall of every event for the rest of their lives. Additionally, the Blood Ravens seem to develop psychic abilities at an unusually accelerated rate, further setting them apart from other Astartes. Over the span of 5 to 10 standard Terran years, the germ cells within a progenoid gland mature, ready to be harvested. It is carefully cultivated to grow the organs needed for the chapter to sustain its strength. However, chapters that strictly adhere to the dictates of the Codex Astartes are reluctant to use this process to exceed their prescribed numbers, as the Codex mandates that a chapter should not field more than 1,000 space marines at any given time. In this way, the death of a single Astartes often marks the beginning of another, as the gene seed of the fallen warrior is used to create new recruits, ensuring that his legacy endures in the next generation. In instances of catastrophic losses, a chapter may be forced to accelerate the reproduction of its gene seed to replenish its ranks swiftly. In such dire circumstances, apothecaries may resort to the use of test slaves to breed sufficient gene seed. These test slaves, always human males, are often condemned criminals who would otherwise face servitude as mindless servitors. They are kept in an artificial environment within the chapter's fortress monastery, alive but largely unconscious, confined within transparent plasteel gestation chambers for the full maturation period of 5 to 10 years. Although this method allows a chapter to survive and recover from near annihilation, it is far from ideal and is seen as a desperate last resort solution. It is a practice generally avoided except in the gravest of circumstances. This method is also employed by the Adeptus Mechanicus to generate the massive quantities of gene seed required to establish new chapters during a founding, as no existing chapter could afford to spare 1,000 copies of its own gene seed. However, all chapters are required to tie the portion of their gene seed 5% to Mars to ensure its genetic purity and to maintain the Imperium's stores. Through these tithes, the Imperium can gradually amass a reservoir of gene seed, enabling the creation of new chapters on a large scale when the need arises.